Today we're talking about a variety of items, including some free agent and trade rumors involving players like Ekman Larsson, Matthew Tkachuk, as well as Nugent-Hopkins of the Oilers. We have another signing to discuss. We have some more award winners, and we have some sad news from the Minnesota organization as well. We'll jump into all the latest coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about here today, so let's get started. First up, we got word last night about the Selke Trophy. We found out that the Florida Panthers top center, Alexander Barkov, has been awarded the 2021 Selke Trophy Award. Certainly a well-deserving player, a great two-way guy. I know many people refer to him as being one of the top underrated players, but maybe we don't need to do that now because I think it's fair to say he's been getting more and more of his top recognition here. Barkov's a great player. Obviously I know there's a lot of people I've seen online upset about a lot of the voting and how it's gone, accusing a lot of the Professional Writers Hockey Association of people that get to vote on a lot of these, of not taking it seriously or looking at the wrong things. I think no matter who wins an award, there's bound to be people that are disagreeing with it or unhappy because their player or their team or whatever wasn't given the award. But certainly I think it's a tough choice. And when you break down a lot of the stats, sometimes you can see that maybe one player was better than another, but you got to remember this is all opinion based on the guys that are given a chance to vote. So we'll see how things go here with the rest of the awards, but pretty much everyone that's been given out so far, I've seen a bit of a debate online from a lot of fans and other media members who don't vote just to like here. But obviously we'll have to wait and see the remainder of the awards as they're given out. As I mentioned, we also have some other news, including the fact that yesterday, before the Vegas-Montreal Game 4 in Montreal was going to take place, we found out the GM of the Vegas Golden Knights, Kelly McCrimmon, tested positive for COVID. Now, we've yet to see any players from either team end up on the COVID list, so nobody's impacted that way. Rosters are not impacted, but still, the fact that we now have the Habs head coach and the GM of the Knights both under isolation because of this, there had to be something likely when they were in Vegas for games 1 and 2 that could have caused some sort of exposure or something that they weren't aware of. It's really hard to say. Everybody likes to say that they were following protocols and being really tight and safe like they're normally supposed to be, and maybe they were. Like, it doesn't mean that they didn't follow what they were supposed to do. But I know that there was also mention that in game 3 in Montreal, you could see Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee, and I noticed this myself, up in their box watching the game, and neither one of them had a mask on. And it is mandatory, part of the NHL protocols, that all NHL staff, GMs, presidents, coaches, anybody who's around like that does have to wear a mask when they're in the arena. And they were not, and apparently they were spoken to about that. And I know somebody from Vegas had put out a statement saying that wouldn't happen again. So obviously, if Kelly McCrimmon was around George McPhee without a mask, then obviously I would think that George would be pretty likely to pick it up as well, because 48 hours before you test positive is typically when you're most contagious. So that's, somebody he would have been around as a close contact without without a lot of protection in the close quarters. So I don't know. We'll see. But I just hope for everyone's sake that it doesn't spread to the teams and the players. But, we still have, 2, maybe 3 more games in this series to get through. And then, of course, the Stanley Cup final. One of these teams have to move on to play for the Cup. So I just hope that COVID doesn't impact or really impact the outcome of these games or any potential Stanley Cup championship. I'd hate to see anything tainted with that in regards here. Now, obviously, we also have a signing today. The Dallas Stars have announced that they've signed veteran forward Blake Comeau to a 1-year, $1 million contract. When we did the Dallas Stars offseason plan video just not that long ago, we were talking about a lot of the upcoming pending UFAs for the Stars, and I wondered if they might bring some of them back or some of them not. Guys like Comeau, Cogliano especially, it's kind of on the fence. I didn't know if the Stars would bring them back on a short-term deal, or would they maybe try to go more of a youth movement, create some space for some younger players, and it looks as though they're willing to get Comeau back. I mean, he's used to being on shorter-term deals. One of the contracts that he signed here with the Dallas Stars, which is when he first joined the organization, was a 3-year deal that's just expiring. That was one of the longer-term contracts he's had. He's done a lot of 1-year deals in his career. That's usually what you have to do when you're, more of a bottom 6 type of player. But obviously, he sticks around on a 1-year, $1 million contract. And then also we have some sad news from the Minnesota Wild organization as well. We found out that Assistant General Manager Tom Curvers has passed away at the fairly young age of 58 years old after a 2.5-year courageous battle with lung cancer. Now, Curvers is somebody who was quite revered in the state of Minnesota as being a star athlete, obviously at the lower levels, and worked his way up into the college scene. Went to the University of Minnesota Duluth, where he was a terrific hockey player and won a Hobey Baker Trophy there as well. So he was certainly, looked upon as being one of the star players that come out of that state back in his era when he played. He played a variety of NHL teams and ended up playing, I think it was 13 seasons, including the 1986 Stanley Cup champion Montreal Canadiens. So he does have his name on the cup, has a cup on his resume, and of course had some runs with the Islanders as well when they went deeper into the playoffs. So he's got a lot of playoff experience and was a really key player on some of those teams. Was a pretty solid offensively gifted puck-moving defenseman. After he retired, he ended up getting into the business side of the game. Started off as a scout, and then he did that for a little while. Then he was an assistant coach. He ended up being a director of player personnel for a little while, and then worked his way into back at his home state here with the Wild. I think it was about 3 years ago in 2018 when he became the assistant general manager. And of course, it was 2.5 years ago or so when he was diagnosed. So it wasn't long after he returned to his home state of Minnesota, where he probably, would have loved to have remained with that organization for a long time, and unfortunately succumbed to his battle here. So certainly some sad news. I'd certainly like to extend our condolences to the family and friends, loved ones of Tom Curvers, and certainly some sad news. That's very unfortunate. But, I know we've seen lots of great comments from former teammates and friends and family through social media. He was certainly a very well-respected and well-liked, member of the hockey community, and he's certainly going to be missed by many people there. We also learned today that NHL veteran player JT Brown, who most recently competed this past season in Europe, has announced his retirement from hockey, but then immediately announced his new gig, which is actually going to be with the new franchise, the Seattle Kraken. Of course, JT Brown played mostly with the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's where he was drafted and brought into the game of hockey in the NHL level. Ended up playing a little bit with Anaheim after being traded there, and then ended up going back as a free agent and did play 1 year in Minnesota as well, where he also hails from, and get to play 1 year with them. Then spent some time with their AHL affiliate in Iowa. This past year in 2021, earlier he ended up having a chance to go over and play in Sweden. He was without an NHL contract, weighing his opportunities. Played in Sweden, came back, and now here we go. He gets an opportunity to join the Kraken as a TV analyst. He'll be working with John Forsland, who we know was already previously announced to be their main play-by-play guy. So obviously that's going to be a pretty good duo. JT will bring you the perspective of the former player, add some color to the comments and play-by-play analysis of the great John Forsland, who's certainly one of the best in the business. So another great hire by the Seattle Kraken. I must say, pretty much everything they've done so far with all of the people they brought in, from the GM to the people on the business side, the analytics, and of course their TV people. It looks like it's a home run here, and I think they've got themselves a pretty solid group of people that are involved with that new organization. So we'll see how things go. Be interesting to see JT on TV and see how this new gig starts off, and hopefully he's got a lot of success in the future in that side of the business. Now, before we jump into the remainder of this video, I do want to take a moment here and pause for our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. Of course, with Manscaped, we have a special offer here for all Top Shelf Hockey viewers, where you can get 20% off and free shipping on all orders at manscaped.com. Now, of course, Manscaped just launched a brand new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is a fantastic product. They've taken the level up here, even again with the skin-safe replaceable blades. It's waterproof, it's wireless charging, has a travel lock on it, as well as a nice light so you don't miss what you're doing. So certainly a terrific product. Now, many people associate Manscaped with their trimmers, which is certainly kind of their top product, but they do have a lot of other great options as well, including what they call the Weed Whacker, which is another trimmer for your ears and nose. And they have a variety of deodorants and sprays as well, which also keep you fresh and are terrific as well. So certainly Manscaped has a lot to offer, and we certainly highly recommend all of their products. So check out manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for watching that promotional video from Manscape. I greatly appreciate it. Now getting into the rest of today's rumors regarding some free agent and trade details that we might be seeing this offseason, I want to start with the Edmonton Oilers and how things are going with pending UFA Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Of course, the former first overall pick has been a member of the Oilers his entire career and is a pretty important piece there. I mean, he's arguably their third most productive player behind McDavid and Draisaitl. Obviously coming off a longer-term contract, and it's believed that he'd like to get another longer-term contract in place to set himself up to finish his career with the Oilers, or at least the bulk of the remainder of his career. It's hard to say exactly how long he'll play, but either to the end or near the end of his career. And of course, he seems interested in staying with the Oilers, but at the same time wants to be paid fairly and appropriately. So it's believed that the latest reports, what we've heard from guys like Elliot Friedman, are the Oilers have set aside about $30 million to look after RNH. And will that be enough? Only time will tell. But it's believed they would like to get anywhere from a 5 or 6 year deal. Obviously, the longer the better, to lower the average annual value, which will give them a little bit more cap flexibility. So a 6-year deal at $5 million would be their preferred target. And that might seem like a low figure based on what he's making now and how productive he's been. But it's the nature of the economics in the NHL currently right now as well. Obviously, a lot of teams have lost a lot of money. We're not going to see, I don't think, a lot of longer-term big money contracts. We will see some for the absolute top, cream of the crop kind of players. Like I'm sure Ovechkin and Washington will get a massive contract. But guys like RNH that are a little bit lower down the pecking order here, I think we're going to, in some cases, they might even have to take a little bit of a haircut. Like look at a guy that comes to mind like Mike Hoffman last year, left the Florida Panthers, got a 1-year deal in St. Louis and took, I think it was $1 million less, because that's, in his performance wasn't down at all. It's just the nature of the business. So for Nuge to stay with the Oilers, he may have to do that if they're going to be able to make that work. They also got to sign Ekman Larsson, who they seem to be interested in, and latest word there was that things are still being discussed, being worked on. They're expected to be able to come to terms, but it's not done yet, and it's taken longer. I know we had reports back 3 or 4 weeks ago that they believe things were getting close, and it's still not done. So obviously they've hit some snags there, and we don't know exactly what's holding that deal up, but obviously that'll impact the available money that are available to the rest of the roster here too. So obviously we'll see what happens with Nugent-Hopkins. I think if he hits free agency, it's quite possible somebody might pay a little bit more to get him on their roster, but is it going to be a better situation for him? Is it going to be a better fit? All that we really don't know. I don't think that there would be as much interest in him as some other guys, but given the free agent crop this year, he would be one of the higher profile players available. So you never know. He might be able to get paid a bit more, but at the end of the day, that's what the Oilers seem to be prepared to offer. And it's not really at a point where it's a take it or leave it situation, but we're probably getting close to that by the sounds of things. Of course, yesterday we talked about the fact that Oliver Ekman-Larsson's officially back on the market, and the Coyotes are taking a different approach this year. And I've seen all kinds of articles already out 24 hours later talking about whether or not the Boston Bruins will continue to pursue him, that they, because they were one of the teams that were involved last year. We know that Ekman Larsson has a no move, so he has to approve any deal. So certainly taking this approach is a little bit different than last year. It might prove to be a little bit riskier for the Coyotes, given the fact they can present several deals that they're willing to do that Ekman Larsson may not be willing to approve. So I guess we'll see. But at the same time, if he wants out of there bad enough and they both sides really want to work something out, then he may not have a choice but to wave to a team that might not have been his preferred choice a year ago. But obviously nothing has changed for the Bruins. They need somebody on their blue line to help out with experience, and they need somebody on the left side. We know this is at the top of the wish list for head coach Bruce Cassidy, who said so himself in end-of-season media availability. And we also heard comments from Cam Neely and Don Sweeney as well, indicating that they agree with his assessment and they're going to do their best to try to accommodate that and bring in somebody as an experienced defenseman to work in their top four. Obviously, they have Carlo, they have McAvoy on the right side. So that part of the blue line is pretty decent. They have Matt Grzelcyk. They have potentially Mike Riley, who they could bring back. I think Riley's better suited for a third pair. So if you bring in Ekman Larsson, you could have Grzelcyk, Ekman Larsson, and Riley be your top three on the left side. That's not too bad. But I think Ekman Larsson's going to need a real solid coach to work with. I think it's fair to say his confidence has been greatly impacted through another tough season in Arizona. His play has certainly declined and regressed a bit from a few years back, and it's just not the same as it was even 3 or 4 years ago. Our team takes him, I think they're getting a little bit of risk and in some sense a little bit of a project to kind of rejuvenate this player, but he showed in the past that he has a lot more talent than what's been being put on the ice here in Arizona the last few years. It's been tough there. They haven't been winning a lot. that weighs on a player over time. Of course, he's got the burden of being a captain, which is not for everybody either, and that might not be something that he really cares to do. He doesn't really come across as being the most outspoken leader. Maybe he's better suited for more of a secondary role. We've talked about this for a lot of guys. When they're the guy trying to lead the team, it just doesn't work. When they're more of a secondary piece, when they're not so pressured to be the top guy, makes all the difference in the world with how they can perform. They can relax better, and that could very well be the case with this player as well. Now, like I said, it might be a scenario where Arizona has to retain some salary. I mean, there's a lot of years left, but it's, $8.25 million is a lot for just about any team. Now, the Coyotes have also made it known that they're willing to take back an unfavorable contract as well, but they would prefer it to have less term on it than his contract. So if you look at the Bruins, you're not really going to see a whole lot of that. I mean, the only contract that remotely comes close to being longer term that you could maybe argue isn't the greatest is Charlie Coyle. I know a lot of Bruins fans probably still really like Coyle. I'm not sure how Bruins management feels about it, but I think it's fair to say that based on what he's getting paid, you can maybe make the argument that it's not as great as it maybe was once thought to be when he first signed it. However, he's still a pretty decent player, and it's not by no means the worst contract around. Like, there's many other teams that have way worse contracts than Charlie Coyle. That's just one of the ones, if you look at a bigger number that could move off their books to kind of level out the money, that could make it a little bit more affordable. They're expected to sign Krejci and Hall to bring them back as long as they both want to, and signs are indicating that we're leaning that way right now. So they do have to watch their dollars here a little bit. But if Ekman Larsson would be a great fit in Boston, I think in a lot of ways, it's just a matter of making the logistics work. I don't know exactly what they're going to have to do on a trade, but looking for the Bruins to be one of the teams involved here down the stretch as trade talks heat up on this player. Now, lastly, here I want to touch on another article we came across, which is on STLtoday.com, which is obviously covers the St. Louis Blues. And author Ben Fredrickson talking about what the Blues need to avoid kind of going through a retool, to kind of get them reignited here. Obviously, the Blues haven't had nearly as much success since they won the Stanley Cup, and many people, myself included, feel like they could make a move or two here to kind of shake things up and rejuvenate that roster. And this article kind of discusses a player, which would be Matthew Tkachuk, who he felt would be a terrific fit and could accomplish that if the Calgary Flames, of course, are willing to do that. Now, we're not going to label this section here, this segment, as an actual trade rumor. This is not a trade rumor. This is just a trade discussion. This article talks about the fact that, from the Blues' perspective, that they feel that they would love to be able to make a deal to bring him back to his hometown, and that he feels that the Blues would benefit greatly, and wonders what it would take from the Flames to make it happen, and would they even consider trading him, which we don't know, but we're going to assume right now that probably not, but it's just really for discussion purposes only. So don't take this as a rumor. I'm not saying Matthew Tkachuk's getting traded. I'm not saying the Blues are hardcore going after him. There's nothing like that. So make sure you get this straight. Essentially, like I said, this article talks about that he'd be the perfect fit there. Of course, his dad played in St. Louis. They grew up in St. Louis as well, like him and Brady and his sister. So like they're St. Louis is their hometown. What player wouldn't love that opportunity to go back and be one of the top guys to lead that team back to prominence? So that if he were to be traded, that would probably be his preferred destination to be able to play in his home city. I mean, you'd have to think that'd be the case, right? So Matthew Tkachuk is on a short-term RFA deal that's backloaded. His next qualifying offer is going to be around $9 million. So it's a lot of money for the Flames to choke down, and for a team that's not having a lot of success, you can't help but wonder, would they make that consideration? To me, right now, I'm going to have to say most likely not. I think they're going to look to retool a bit this offseason, but personally, I think it's more guys like Gaudreau and Monahan that would be more likely to be moved. Monahan's probably the most likely, with Gaudreau being the second most likely, in my opinion, for people that could be traded of higher profile natures on that Flames team to shake things up and to try to get a new core group of players together to hopefully lead this team to having some more success, especially in the playoffs. So to me, I don't think the Flames entertain trading Matthew Tkachuk. I think he could be the centerpiece there. But at the same time, I will say this, that Matthew Tkachuk was not Matthew Tkachuk this past summer, and I wonder if there's any chance that he would want to be traded, given the fact that, things just didn't work out there this past year. Now, it's only 1 year. It's not like I'm thinking that he definitely would want out or anything, but to me, he wasn't himself, and I think part of that was because the team asked him to make some adjustments to how he played. Matthew Tkachuk is hard to play against. He's a very feisty, pest kind of player, in your face. getting you under your skin, to make you make mistakes, go into taking penalties, all that kind of stuff. And really, after early in the season, I just didn't see that. I saw the Flames play a lot this past year. Living in Canada, I saw a ton of North Division games because that's mostly what was broadcasted here night after night. And to me, he just wasn't himself. And I wonder if he would welcome that. But at the same time, it's not up to him. He doesn't have a lot of leverage in his contract right now unless he requests or demands a trade, which could certainly get ugly. But we have no reason to think anything like that has happened or is going to happen. But still, it's something to think about. To me, it's an unlikely scenario. Do I see the fit from the St. Louis side? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to happen? Absolutely not. I think the Flames would be absolutely crazy to do that. But I can understand what it would, why they would entertain it on the St. Louis side. Like, the likely package would have to include Vince Dunn, would give them a solid young defenseman going back. You're probably looking at about at least one first-round pick, and then probably a combination of Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. To me, that's at least your starting point. I don't know if that's what gets it done or not, but you're going to need something comparable to that to make the trade, at least perk Calgary's ears to think about it. And I'm still not sure they do it, but that's probably what you're looking at. So let me know what you think. Is there any chance Calgary trades Matthew Tkachuk? Or is this just a pipe dream from the blue side of things, which to me is the most likely outcome here? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news and rumors on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.